last couple of weeks, we've been taking a look at Call of Duty games from the past decade or so, and going back and taking a look at what were the classics of COD and what they're like now in 2018. Today, a little bit of forewarning, we're talking about one of my favorite games ever, and definitely by far what I would consider what was and what very well may still be my favorite title in the entire Call of Duty franchise. Today we're going to be talking about Black Ops 2. And admittedly, I was kind of bummed because I jumped back on, super excited and everything like that, but adjusting back to the Xbox 360 and Xbox One controllers, man, that got a little bit out of hand with me, but nonetheless, it was still a ton of fun to play with and to reconnect with a game that honestly I put so much time into back in the day. Back in my prime, I would literally grind this game out whenever I could. It was one of those things where everything worked out for the younger version of me that I didn't really have to do much other than pay attention to school and then how much I wanted to grind out with my friends, whether it be pubs or league play, grinding out master ranks and other things considered. It was one of those situations, probably the last time that I got to do that, as Black Ops 2 was that marker of my senior year in high school, so afterwards, well, everything got a little bit more hectic in real life. But still, Black Ops 2 holds a very special place in my heart. And that might be something that you feel as well, because to many, Black Ops 2 was one of those last COD games they deeply connected with. To me, it was awesome because it introduced a lot of awesome stuff. The gameplay was absolutely killer, the maps, the weapons, everything that we'll be talking about here in this video today. It was just an incredible experience, I think, overall. Starting with some of the stuff that it introduced, well, League play was probably my favorite thing out of this, that it was brand new. And since Black Ops 2, there's been many attempts to recreate that lightning in a bottle that was League play, but none have come close enough to actually make it what it was back then. And for me, I finished up multiplayer in about 3 months' time after the game launched, but played, I'm not kidding you, the entire time up until the launch of Ghosts with League play and my squad of friends attempting to rank as high as we could and get as good as we could. So to me, I think this might have been the golden era of COD esports, at least in my mind. It was the classic scene, and granted, we are getting a lot more attention in Call of Duty right now, and a lot more is being funneled into the CWL and things like that. But the golden era of COD esports to me has to fall within Black Ops 2, just because that's when everything was so passionate, I think, within the community. It kind of meshed well into the public community as well. It wasn't this great divide there is now with competitive players and the regular casual players. That sort of stuff didn't really exist as much back then, but to me, I don't know, maybe I'm crazy, but I definitely think that Black Ops 2 was that golden era or maybe beacon of light that kind of helped pave the way for where we are now. Another awesome thing that it introduced was the Scorestreaks system fully. That was introduced in Black Ops 2 to be rewarded for your tactical play as well as your kills, and man oh man, some of my favorite streaks were definitely in this game. Even though there was no nuke, there were only the nuclear medals, which, yeah, it's kind of a bummer, especially given that the year before we saw the follow-up to the nuke, that being the Moab in Modern Warfare 3, but even though you only had the option as a highest streak to get a nuclear medal and the unstoppable medal as well, Black Ops 2 still had some insanely awesome streaks, and my preferred method of attack was the Warthog, Escort Drone, and Stealth Chopper, and all aerial, all the time. You could keep grinding out kills from the ground while they gave you Overwatch and cleanup kills from above, and I actually think that I got my first 100 plus in Black Ops 2 with that loadout. But of course, there also was the K9 unit, the Swarm, the Lodestar, all iconic, and man, do I miss them. You know what, man? Just give me a Black Ops 2 remaster. I just need this on PlayStation 2. I can't deal with adjusting to the Xbox One and 360, so I'll take that PlayStation 4 version if you guys don't mind, Activision. But all jokes aside, and in all seriousness, I do think this might have been the last truly iconic Scorestreak selection for me. Black Ops 3 had some decent ones, but looking back at recent years, no streaks really wowed me like they did from Black Ops 2 and beforehand. Those Scorestreaks were iconic, definitely kept me engaged. That's one thing that I think that definitely recent games in the franchise have kind of lacked. Other things that were awesome were, of course, maps. You had the classics like Hijacked, Nuketown 2025, Standoff, Raid, Express, and Black Ops 2 was actually also the first game where I genuinely enjoyed playing the DLC maps, and I'd honestly list some of them as classics as well. Grind being one of those, Studio being one of those. Frost was a cool map. I don't know if I'd put that in the classic category, but again, there were just a lot of different DLC maps that were also awesome as well. As for the weaponry, man, I could go on and on about the weapons in Black Ops 2, but I'll try and keep it short and brief. The MSMC, without a doubt, one of my favorite weapons, if not my favorite weapon of all time within Call of Duty. I know that's my default, definitely, when people ask me that on stream or in comments, but it's seriously up there. The M8 is a close second, as is the AN-94, but seriously, so many awesome weapons within this game that I don't think you could go wrong with choosing pretty much anything. Obviously, some will outclass others, but that's just how it always works. And again, that's one thing that also, as of recent titles, I think might be lacking as well, as just iconic weapons. Some are meta, yes, in which people will definitely default to using them, but I wouldn't put any of the weapons within, say, the last 4 years of Call of Duty in my top 5 of all-time favorites. But talking weaponry, but kind of shortly changing the topic at hand, is weapon DLC, because you can thank Black Ops 2 for the DLC weapons that we may very well see going forward for the rest of the Call of Duty franchise's future, but DLC weapons were actually first introduced within Black Ops 2 with the Peacekeeper. That was the only one due to memory constraints. There were actually plans, fun fact, to add more in, but they couldn't actually have it with the memory that they had available on hand for Black Ops 2. So the Peacekeeper was the only one that we got back in the day, but as with that DLC weapon and also the other DLC within the game outside of maps were camos. Paid for all of this stuff, you could literally just do whatever you want, get whatever you want. There was no RNG or supply drop luck, you had to play. And truthfully, when we talk about the golden era of stuff, this in my books was the golden age of the DLC system. More choices than what you had previously at any point in time at that point. Now granted, of course, we have more, but more choices at that point in time. Just pay for what you want, and that's what you got. Tons of awesome camos to choose from. They dropped a ton in 2 different seasons of DLC 1 and DLC 2 for camos, but there was so much awesome stuff you could choose from. And just to kind of round the bases a little bit more here at this one, I feel like I wouldn't do the game justice or my enjoyment of the game overall justice as well if I didn't mention them, but my gosh, was the campaign fantastic. Unfortunately, it was not bested by Black Ops 3, but up until this point, the story arc just kept getting better and better and better, from World at War to Black Ops 2. Treyarch titles just progressively got better and better. Black Ops 3 you might, once again, very much enjoy, but I don't think that it tops Black Ops 2. The story of the Masons, Woods, Menendez, that was thrilling from start to finish, and the multiple outcomes, man, it was so good. I could go back and play that campaign any day of the week. I love that one so much, and again, the multiple endings is something that honestly I think would be so cool to see returning in Call of Duty, but I understand where it kind of takes away from continuity or canon, but regardless, it was awesome. Zombies as well as fantastic. Remaster Mob of the Dead. I could probably do without Transit, but in hindsight, it was an ambitious project, which I totally appreciate that. But what is all of this like in 2018? One of the biggest things that is just an avid indicator of how the game will play overall, the past couple of titles that we've taken a look at, is player base, which in Black Ops 2 it's actually pretty solid, but it ranges by a lot. Anywhere from what I saw, 6,000 that I saw on my 360 to 16,000 that I saw earlier today while on my Xbox One. If I'm truthful with you, I'm not entirely sure if the backwards compatible players are counted on the 360 version or not. And if not, it would make sense for such a massive difference in players listed, but it's also fair to mention that this might be due to the time in which I grabbed B-roll footage for each console. The 360 footage, which had the player number on the lower end, was earlier in the morning on a Friday, so perhaps while a large portion of players were at work, and while a weekend recording session on the Xbox One, where I saw 16,000 players, can explain why there were a lot more people online. But then again, I digress, there's a wide range regardless. And while I might be a little bit biased because I love this game so much, it actually kind of surprised me that it's still probably not the most populated out of the older titles that are currently still supported and active on different consoles. It is interesting that it's blowing games like Modern Warfare 3 and potentially Modern Warfare 2 out of the water. I mentioned when we talked about Modern Warfare 2 that I didn't actually have the exact numbers for that game because either mine was bugged or the servers weren't displaying the count accurately because they were all listed as 0 players out of 0. But even with 16,000 players on Black Ops 2, the interesting part is it's still dwarfed in comparison when looking at the original Black Ops. When we first examined that about 2 or 3 months ago, it peaked at 140,000 players, potentially via bug, but definitely a ton of players were real. Also, even as of 2 weeks ago when we did the retrospective look for that game, there were still 40,000 players online on Black Ops, and that's all so strange, but also incredibly interesting to me. So Black Ops 2 still is not that #1 in the older titles that has the player counts, but it's a second. I won't say close, but it's a second. As for lobbies, well, I had seen in last week's Modern Warfare 3 video that people mentioned that I seemingly left out the inclusion of modded lobbies. In truth, at that point, I hadn't encountered any modded lobbies on that, but apparently PlayStation 3 was much more susceptible to the modding for Modern Warfare 3, which could be why as an Xbox player, I didn't see it on those older games. But For Black Ops 2, well, let me tell you, I found quite a few. Some speed mods, some XP lobbies, some unlock all, and my favorite that I came across randomly was where every kill was 1,337 points, or leap points, so you got your score streaks with 1 kill, which, believe it or not, in that game, the modder was actually on my team and we still ended up losing, so go figure that out with all that streak spam. Beats me. But in truth, if you hop on Black Ops 2 today, you may be finding quite a few lobbies like that. Much more than the other games that we've detailed that I've found. And it's kind of strange to me because I always think of the incredibly modded one being Modern Warfare 2, but I'd say probably about 1 in 5 lobbies that I played throughout the day for quite some time were modded. But if you can deal with just backing out, it shouldn't affect you all that much, especially with a decent population in the game compared to other titles. You'll end up easily finding just a regular other match if you so decide to jump on. The final thing I want to mention about your gameplay experience is connection, because we've talked about this being spotty in every game that we've detailed previously, and it's pretty much the same thing. It's still spotty. We're starting to get closer in terms of chronological order of release dates in the games that were in development to being closer to that of a hybrid system, which is in between a dedicated server system and peer-to-peer, but Black Ops 2 is still on that peer-to-peer system, and thus you'll come across games in which you'll have host migrations, connection interrupted, lost connection to hosts, and all that kind of stuff. I even had one where it straight up said the host ended the game. It didn't even attempt to migrate a host to try and keep the game going. So you'll come across all that stuff, unfortunately, but again, that's your classic COD for you. But all in all, ultimately at the end of the day, I still think that it's definitely a ton of fun. One thing that really helps out to preserve this game more so than, say, the Modern Warfare series is that it is backwards compatible. If you guys have it and you have an Xbox One or 360, instead of trying to break out your 360, you can simply just pop it into your Xbox One and play it from there. It's definitely something that I recommend doing if you guys have the opportunity to do so, because like I said, this to me is probably my favorites and what I believe is one of the best Call of Duties to date. So give it a shot if you guys have the opportunity to do so, if you guys are looking to kill some time. Definitely a lot of fun to go back and relive some of those classic moments and memories. So that said, that's gonna wrap it up here with this one. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Give Black Ops 2 another shot if you guys still have your disc laying around anywhere and you guys have some time to kill. I highly recommend it. You'll have a lot of fun. But if you guys enjoyed the video, if you guys did, make sure you guys drop a like down below if you guys did. And if you are new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe so you don't miss a single thing regarding Call of Duty World War II, Black Ops 4, maybe Modern Warfare 2 Remastered, and other retrospective looks at games like Black Ops 2. And next week, you can probably guess it, it's gonna be Call of Duty Ghosts. One that might be my favorite to least favorite, but we'll see where that lies come next week. So, that said, if you guys are interested in any of that, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single thing. If you guys want to follow me over on Twitter, that's the best place to get connected with me outside of YouTube. Practically live on Twitter, and we're now on that road to 10,000 followers over on Twitter. We just hit 9,000, so thank you for that. But also, if you guys want to follow me over on Instagram, that link is as well in the description below. But with all that said and out of the way, hope you guys are on a fantastic day. Thank you all so much for watching. Have a great day. I'll see you guys later. My name's been Espresso. Take care, and peace.